viewers, Salaam alaikum, and this is segment 2 of the program Never Too Late to Learn. Inshallah, today we'll be speaking to Brother Fazeel Ghoor. He has been a guest with us several times over the radio and on Sufi TV as well. So we'd like to welcome him. He is a nutritional therapist based in Durban, and the practice that he runs from is Transitions Healthcare. He's been, alhamdulillah, working with people, trying to give them or doing the best that he can in bringing their body back into balance and hence having a balanced life in all areas of their lives, inshallah. So, assalamu alaikum, Brother Fazeel.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's always a pleasure to be here on your program, Rubina. Thank you so much for inviting me.
It's a pleasure, alhamdulillah. Today we're going to be speaking about gut health, and that has obviously the topic that we really can't stop talking about. So we'd like to ask you, Brother Fazeel, what is the different aspects of gut health that we have in terms of digestion and absorption? How does that come into play?
Yes, look, it's a very interesting topic, and it's important to say this, that, everything starts in the gut. And we tend to not understand that well enough, because it's all about our eating habits, and it's all about a whole lot of other things, digestion and absorption, as in your question. So excellent questions, because if you're going to be talking about digestion, you've got to absorb. If you're not digesting, you've got nothing to absorb. So I'll just go into a little bit of the physiology of the gut, just so that we can explain what it means when we talk about gut health. We need to eat to survive. So we can look here at this wonderful picture here of that we posted on the, that is an explanation of what the gut looks like. So you'll see it starts off there with the oral cavity with the mouth. So it's very important that, if we look at Allah is designed that such that we have a mouth, it's equipped with teeth, and you've got a tongue, you've got salivary glands below that where you're going to be secreting all the enzymes. And there's several different types of, several enzymes that are taking part in this entire digestive process, and it comes from all different glands throughout the body. So if you look at this picture here, it says it starts off with the oral cavity going down the esophagus, which is the pipe where you're going to be swallowing down the food through, and that enters the stomach. And then from the stomach, you go into the small intestine, which is quite a long trip. It's about 5 meters long. And then you've got about another 1.5 meters of a large intestine. So all in all, you're looking at about 6 to 7 meters, depending on, on average, So the gut health is important to be understood from the start. Number one is your choice of foods. Number two is chew your food properly. The teeth are very important there, and the design of the teeth are such that we are able to masticate all the types of foods that Allah has designed us to eat. We are omnivorous, so that the choices of foods that we are able to eat and how we are able to masticate them, in other words, chew them, we must chew properly. And the chewing process and the visual perception of the food in front of you are all very important of the digestive process. Because when you see the food, you actually have some sort of connection with the food. Your body then is stimulated to produce stomach acids. Your body is stimulated to produce saliva, and it'll make sense because you start salivating before you've started even introduce the food into your mouth, because your knowledge of the food that is being prepared, you know that there is a lovely meal coming, you can smell it, and you can see the food. So all these little stimuli are very important as part of your gut health. So now when you're introducing the food into your mouth, you're chewing, and it's important, I must say this, try and chew well. Try and chew, they say chew your food 30 times. I know it sounds quite a lot, but we'll try our best to chew to the best where we can break down the foods, the smaller pieces, and then when it gets into the stomach, it's not very hard for the stomach to even then further mechanically break it down. So in other words, we have some mechanical breakdown in the mouth, going down the esophagus, and then into the stomach where it meets now the gastric fluid, which is hydrochloric acid. The stomach produces this acid. This acid has to be at the resting phase. You're looking at a pH of about 4. If our pH is higher than that, then that's a bit of a concern. We need to make sure that we are producing a lot of good acids. So now it's difficult to just measure the pH. You can't just put in some sort of thing in there unless you do go in for an actual procedure. But the best thing is to encourage it through your senses. You're having, when the stomach produces the acids, it will be based on your visual stimuli as well. A healthy liver will also go and contribute towards that stomach acid production. But anyway, when you're starting to eat now, then what happens is the stomach acids then will increase the acidity. In other words, it lowers the pH, and the pH that will be then will be between 1 and 3. Now, it's so important for us to understand this, because at that point we've got the salivary amylase that came from the salivary glands from the mouth, and then we've got the pepsinogen, which is released from the gastric mucosa. In other words, the stomach walls will release a pepsinogen. The pepsinogen becomes converted into pepsin, which is the active enzyme. And it'll only get converted to that active enzyme when it's a pH of 1 to 3. So you understand, in terms of the gastric acid, it's so important for us to acknowledge that. So all those people who are, who have a habit of taking alkaline powders and who are actually on proton pump inhibitors, in other words, these are the medications that actually reduce that acid production, you're actually compromising your digestive function. Now, the pepsin that we're talking about in the stomach actually helps you with protein digestion. So if you're not going to be digesting your proteins, then you're not going to be helping your natural collagen production within your body to help build up your structure. So anyway, then let's go on to the rest of the alimentary canal. Now, we've done the stomach. There were some enzymes involved from the salivary glands, and some enzymes that came in also from the pancreas and from the liver. And then going down now in this long, windy trip and very good scenic trip, which is the small intestine. The small intestine, being around 5 meters in length roughly, is divided into 3. So these 3 are then your duodenum, your jejunum, and your ileum. So now there's different processes happening there. It's again about digestion. At the first point of the duodenum, this is when the liver sends down the bile. So if you've eaten some fatty foods, like let's say if you've eaten an avocado or a bit of coconut oil or whatever it may be, you have that at that particular point when it reaches the duodenum, which is the part of the small intestine, the bile is then secreted. The senses are, it's like information then goes from that point to the liver or to the gallbladder then to send down some bile. And then the gallbladder sends down the bile, and this is where the fats are actually being emulsified. So in other words, you break down your fats there, so that you have the breakdown of the fats will release the fatty acids, just like we had in the stomach. We have breakdown of proteins, releases the amino acids. All these are building blocks for our structure and for lots of other processes in the body. So the small intestine has some bacteria. They are supportive of there, but much of these bacteria, the good bacteria, we often talk about probiotics. These good bugs are actually present in our large intestine, the bulk of them. Approximately, in the small intestine will be about 200 grams, but if you're looking in total, about 1.4 to 1.5 kilograms of the probiotics or the good bacteria. These good bacteria help us also with digestion, so it's also part of the gut health. There's a lot of processes that they are involved with. They help to break down digestion. They also help us in terms of with the absorption, because where they live is like a lumen around the large intestine, and they actually help us then to pass these nutrients through the walls and into the blood system so that we can absorb successfully. So this is where the topic about absorption. So absorption happens in the stomach, absorption happens in the small intestine and in the large intestine. We've just to simplify this then, we've got to understand that gut health will determine your entire body's health. And that's not only the physical well-being, we also have to look at mental and the spiritual well-being, because a lot of this happens in the gut. If you eat right, and if you are digesting, and you are then successfully digesting it with absorption, then you're getting the nutrients passed into your blood system, and which your body then can, the blood will be distributed all over your body for your different parts of the body to actually then use up for structural and other processes. So The We were talking about the large intestine last. So at that point, you find that the production of vitamin B12 happens there between the small intestine and the large intestine. Now, you may have heard about vitamin B12 is one of the nutrients, and vitamin B12 is so important for us. For let's just look at two processes. The one process is it helps with some amino acids that you've broken down from the proteins, which is called tryptophan, and then you end up manufacturing your melatonin. Melatonin, which is the hormone that puts you off to sleep. And it manages, you're helping to manage your stress levels during the day. When you have cortisol levels, you've got balance between the cortisol and the melatonin. So in the morning, when you see the sun, the cortisol level starts going up. And then at night time, as the sun is setting, the cortisol is supposed to be set. And that sets, and then your melatonin is supposed to be to kick in again. So we understand that even your sleeping habit is dependent on gut health. Your successful sleep. If your gut health is good, you sleep well. Never mind that. Again, one more point about vitamin B12. Again, there is the production of your dopamine and your serotonin, which also starts off in the gut. So dopamine and serotonin, what are those? Those are your feel-good hormones. These are your hormones that help you not to be stressed, to be able to smile and enjoy life and be happy. So these are the things that we are also dependent. So if you have a good gut health, you also end up being less stressed in your lifestyle. You end up being happy. You are able to give off your best self also because of gut health. So just think about how we should look after our gut health. Now, again, thereafter, a lot of the whatever happens in the large intestine, the last bits of absorption happens there, and the undigested matter and the other toxins that have been removed from the body, etc., will now have to be removed. So this is where we eliminate from via the rectum and the anus. So this is where it's so important. If you have good gut health, you should be actually going to pass out stools about 2 to 3 times a day. So we look there, look at this entire lovely drawing there that we have here. Thank you so much to Hasmet who has sourced this lovely picture. We have the green part, that's your large intestine. The orange part in the middle, that one there is your small intestine. And finally, we actually eliminate through the anus, where we've got to make sure that at least if we know that our bowel movements are such that we are eliminating 2 to 3 times a day, that's normal. And no, it sounds like it's a lot, but that's normal. If you're going once a day to the toilet to pass out stools, it's not enough. If you're going more than 3 times a day, there's something wrong there too. So you've got to make sure that we are regular. Now we got to understand what that regular means. What does a regular mean when it comes to gut health? Regular means that your bowel movements are regulated. Your bowel movements are being regulated. It's kind of like a Goldilocks zone in there, not too fast, not too slow. And why not too fast, not too slow? Because digestion must happen successfully. So not too fast, where a lot of the foods are going to be are going to end up being passed out undigested. Good food, good nutrients. We've got to make sure that the pace is right. Then if it's going to be too slow as well, that is a problem. Because if the food is getting stuck somewhere because of buildup of stools, sometimes you don't realize that the small intestine, if it's going to be like about this, wide, if there's an inflammation there, then it ends up closing it and narrows the passageway. If you're going to narrow the passageway, you're going to get food getting stuck there. The stools are going to be getting stuck. So you need to, it'll only successfully push through when you eat your next meal. So it's kind of like the next meal pushes your previous meal out. But if the meals stay there for too long, you got to understand it's going to putrefy. It's going to go off. Leave some meal on the table there for a few hours at a high temperature. Like our body temperature again. If you're going to be leaving it there, within a few hours, it will go off. And you must remember we're exposing this food here to digestive processes, so the rate at which it will actually putrefy will be faster at that body temperature. So now, if we're allowing the food to stay in that long in our stomach, then if it's going to get stuck or blocked because of inflammation in the body, then we're not allowing the regulation of that movement. So another way for you to get rid and go out completely, that you don't allow putrefaction in the gut. So we got to understand that part too, as part of the gut health, that we don't allow time for putrefaction. So even your choice in the way you're going to be eating foods, your mixture of foods is also important. Do not eat fruits mixed with your meaty dishes or your proteins and things like that. You got to maintain a balance. Try and have simple meals. Call them mono meals, simple meals where, especially if you're having digestive disorders, you have to ease in the food so that it's easy for your digestive system, which is already compromised, to be able to digest successfully. So I think we've covered. I'm trying to keep it as short as possible. There's a lot of other things that we can discuss. We can go on and on for about, I think, a few days just discussing the digestive system. So in a nutshell, in the few minutes that I've discussed the different organs that are involved. We've looked at enzyme function, which are important for your digestive system. And then we're also looking at your elimination process. We're looking at absorption. We're looking at also the final with the probiotics, because those are very important in many processes in the body. So that's just in a nutshell with gut health. I think I've answered most of your questions. If there's any questions there further.
Yes, Alhamdulillah. Thank you very much, Fazeel. It was very well presented, and I love the idea of having the picture because it kind of gives us the visual, and we have a better idea of which organs are we speaking about. We
Yes.
have a question that's come through. The question is, what would you advise a person who hasn't been going to the basically passing stools for a whole month now? Where does that person start? Because that sounds a bit hectic, eh?
A month is very long. A month is extremely long, So in other words, we've got to say that as we explained before, the movement should be 2 to 3 times a day. So if people skip a day, 2 days, and I know we've had many cases where people haven't gone to the toilet for about 8 days, 9 days, 10 days, and you think, how are they still okay? But a lot of that food that has actually become now putrefied is now becoming a breeding ground for bad bacteria, fungi, yeast, viruses, worms to then thrive in the gut. So it becomes a home for them to thrive. So we've got to actually advise people to make sure that they keep the meal simple. They've also got to make sure that they have a lot of fiber in their diet, to be your fruits and your veggies. Eat those kind of foods. Understand what fiber is. Hydrate yourself regularly. It comes to mind also when you talk about fiber, there are 2 types of fiber. You've got soluble fiber and insoluble fiber. So if we look at soluble fiber now, soluble fiber is the one that will maintain the moisture level of the stools as it passes down the gut. And the insoluble fiber is the one that maintains the bulk of the stools as it passes. In other words, it makes contact with the walls of the intestines as it passes down, and it's moist enough to slide through. And that moisture is also important because the hydration levels have to maintain that moisture. And through that moisture, it will actually allow absorption via the contact with the intestinal walls. So this is where absorption also happens. Your choice of fiber is also important. Those fruits and veggies are very important because you're going to get nutrients from them. You're going to maintain stool quality, and you're also going to be maintaining also a hydration levels throughout the gut so that you are increasing your absorption. And by you being regular, remember, not too fast, not too slow, 2 to 3 times a day. If you're going to be maintaining that, then you're also then allowing for the good bacteria to thrive, and you're not allowing the bad bacteria to even think of coming there. So you're keeping them out. So it's about peristaltic action also. So people who are constipated have a reduced peristalsis. Now, peristalsis means it's the movement of the bowels down the gut. So the gut or the alimentary canal is a long trip. You've got to make sure that that it works well. That if you are not if you've gone, like for example, once a day to the toilet, you should already tell yourself, without being stressed and paranoid, that you should try and improve the next day. So that the next day at least you're going to be going twice, maybe 3 times. And to achieve that, number 1, hydrate. Number 2, the fiber. And number 3 is also, if you are having that issue, consume some cleansing fibers. From cleansing fibers, we talk about psyllium husk, we talk about aspergilla husk, there's black walnut. There's a whole combination. So I generally use a mixture of about 19 different herbs, which then helps with getting the gut line cleaned out. It's good to keep that lumen clean. The lumen is where the good bacteria live. Make sure that we have that also then cleansed out. Then you don't allow inflammation also to happen in the gut. This is what you're doing by having the cleansing herbs. It's not an laxative. We must understand that we don't support the use of laxatives. We've got to use cleansing herbs. Dandelion root is also an excellent cleansing of milk thistle, because these also help in terms of cleansing out from the liver. And so from the liver, it goes down to the gallbladder, into the small intestine. So that's how it gets rid of all the toxins in your body. The important factor there is to eat the fruits and veggies, having the cleansing herbs to get those bowel movements and the cleansing process going well. Another simple thing that I like to tell people also is to make a mixture of water, apple, maybe 2 apples, those little red ones, for example, and then slice up some ginger and some lemon juice in there. Make that mixture and have that every day also. That also can act as a cleansing mixture for your gut. It cleans it because you got to take it out daily. You can't just take it once often. And then if you're going to be like in your case, you're talking about somebody who had who's constipated for a month. A month is quite a long time, but that person needs urgently to make sure that they eliminate all inflammatory foods from their diet. They've got to understand what that means. They've got to hydrate a lot, drink lots and lots of water, because you've got to make sure that the intestinal walls are then regaining the integrity by being moisturized, and also then the cleansing herbs and the apple, ginger, lemon juice solution that we're talking about.
Jazakallah khair for that. Yeah, so it does seem like, yeah, this person does need more help. Obviously, alhamdulillah, you've answered the question, but I would advise the person who's asked the question, please, to contact Fazeel and see. There would probably be a step-by-step process in this regard. And then also, we have just like a few minutes left. I just have this one question. What's the difference between a laxative and cleansing? Because someone will tell you, take a laxative, you'll clean out your system. This is what we've been taught. So I just on the biologically, what is happening on the physiological aspect when you're taking a laxative and when you're cleaning?
Okay, so when you talk about laxatives, there are some cleansing herbs that have laxative action. So we make sure that we use the ones that don't have laxative action. Laxative means that you irritate the bowels. So you literally stimulating it by irritation. So what happens is you do achieve some sort of removal or elimination from that use. But prolonged use is some people are becoming so used to taking some sort of laxative almost on a daily basis that they don't realize that they are irritating the bowels. They are actually then forcing the movement. So again, we're losing out parts of that. Remember, we spoke about the being regular, the Goldilocks zone, not too fast, not too slow. With a laxative, you end up increasing that speed. You're going to end up losing electrolytes, which in other words, you're reducing your absorption again. If you're reducing absorption, you will also then reduce your metabolism and other processes throughout the body. If you're going to be using a cleansing herbs, which does not have laxative action, you're only cleansing. Now, what we mean by cleansing means if stools are getting stuck in the gut, in the intestines, what tends to happen is if they get stuck there for quite a while, like we said, there's a reduction in the space. So if it's going to be, for example, about this wide normally, and if you're reducing it with inflammation where it becomes this smaller, then you're going to end up getting a blockage. With that blockage, the stools stay there for quite a while and they dry out. When they dry out, they become encrusted on the walls of the intestines. Then, okay, you may successfully irritate the bowels if you end up doing that. and then maybe with the next meals coming and more food is coming in, and you find people become very bloated and large around the abdominal area. Then only then when the next food comes and pushes it through, then they manage to get a bowel movement, which may be after 2 days or 3 days. So that's more because the food is pushing it through, not because of peristaltic action necessarily or on its own. What happens with a cleansing herbs is you're actually breaking down those encrusted stools on the walls, and then removing that, you're helping the body at the intestinal level to reduce inflammation. You then also go to the next step, is where you are removing all those that encrusted stools, which become the home for all these bad bacteria and bad bugs to thrive. Now, I'll just give you a simple example. Some people talk about their nails becoming having a fungal infection on the nails, or even a fungal infection in the skin, or in the UTI, the urinary tract, where they get a fungal infection there. And you try and figure out, where did this fungus come from? This fungus came from the gut. Your gut became leaky, where you get irritable bowel system syndrome. And when you have a leaky gut, it means all these bad bugs like yeast and fungi and etc. pass through into the blood system. They eventually find themselves in the skin or in the urinary tract, and that's where they thrive again. So you find that they will disrupt the microbiomes, the good bacteria in all other parts of the body. So it compromises your good microbiome. You end up having all sorts of different sicknesses. You're exposed to those risks again. So with that that's a very important point to raise. Thank you so much for that question. Yes, a lot of diseases will also start from the gut. A lot of good health starts from the gut. It's about us maintaining the balance between the two. Eliminate 2 to 3 times a day. I know sometimes it can be difficult to get the second one, but that means you didn't have enough water to drink for the day. You didn't have enough good fiber for the day. Make sure you have that balance every day. So reducing the chances of getting blocks in your gut and constipation, which increases the risk of disease.
Jazakumullah khair. Alhamdulillah, we will have Brother Fazeel again, inshallah. This has been very enlightening, and I hope viewers, you've gained as much as I have in terms of understanding gut health. It was very well presented, and also enlightening in the terms of that, this is not just about gut alone. It's about our entire being, our spiritual well-being, physical, emotional, and mental. If we eat right, we feel right, we can connect with Allah easily. And obviously, when the healthier we are, the better our connection, the better our emotions, the better our clarity in our mind. So inshallah, we hope to do our best with this regard, inshallah. And yes, those of you who are interested in getting your health back together, please, I would suggest contact Brother Fazeel Ghoor Transitions Healthcare and see how you can begin your journey, inshallah. With that, listeners, viewers, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Until next week.